All right, so why was there an increase in poverty during Elizabethan times? So the idea comes down to this little guy right here, the sheep. Essentially, people figure out wool is worth loads of money. So what they start to do is they start to farm lots of sheep. Eventually, 80% of British exports are just wool, and the rich are getting real rich. They go, hey, you know what? Why don't all that land we used to grow crops for bread on, why don't we cut all that down and then just have sheep fields, and then we can make lots of money? Well, that creates two big issues. Is wintertime comes around and they need to feed the sheep all the grain that would usually go to be produced to make bread. So the price of bread goes way up, so people are paying all their money for that. And then on top of that, all these sheep farms require less labor. So what that means is that basically there's way less money to go around because sheep require way less labor than growing crops do. So there you go. There, what you have there is there's a gigantic increase in poverty just because selling wool abroad makes them so much money. Then the other thing that's happening during Elizabeth's time is that, well, then you've got this massive growth in population. It's basically like, it's a 35% growth in people between 1558 and 1588. So in between the years of when Elizabeth becomes queen and the Spanish Armada happens, basically you're looking at this insane growth rate of 35%. It's quite big. In London, because of a lot of different changes, London grows 10 times in size. So basically people are coming out of the country and moving into the city. Well, what that means is if you've got that many people, that many new people inside a city, well, the price of bread is going to go way, 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 way up. Also, props to me for remembering to draw little pound symbols as opposed to dollar signs. There you go. Positive sim, Mr. Cadell. But yeah, there you go. Why was there an increase in poverty? Well, bread is way more expensive just because of population growth. So as population starts to increase, if we look down here, if we look at this idea of rising prices, is essentially the production of food is going quite slowly, whereas the population is going really, really, really quick. So once again, if you think about the production of bread, it's kind of like this turtle is super, super, super slow. But the population is like this hare, which is crazy fast. And that's actually an exceptional drawing, by the way, so props to me. Then we've got the other thing that's happening is that wages, is that little pound sign that you're making, that's staying the same. Is that your hourly wage, how much money you get paid for per hour, is staying the exact same. That's a little scale here. It means level, it's staying flat. Whereas, essentially the price of everything is going way up. So right there is that this idea that, well, there's this huge increase in poverty because the price of everything is going way high, but people are making the same amount of money. Then that brings us to our idea of enclosure. Enclosure is kind of what it sounds like, actually. It's, well, why don't we kind of close off some farm space? And that's what they do, is that previously all kinds of people just used to live and just sort of manage small bits of farm here and there, and this idea comes out of, why don't we take these fields and enclose them, and it's just going to be one owner instead of lots of different owners. And so then it basically means this idea that used to be kind of shared land, well, then people are starting to get kicked off. So why did this enclosure thing take place? Well, as you may remember, in the 1440s, there was a guy named Johannes Gutenberg who invents the printing press. Now, 100 years after that, you can really see that start to take place. You see the impacts of the printing press, and that farmers are starting to read all these new different farming techniques because literature can be distributed differently. So, you know, they have all these new ideas. Okay, well, if we enclose the land, we can control where the sheep are and where the crops grow. So that's what they do. Then the other thing, that the reason why they want to do that as well is it means for better drainage. And then it also means for better planting and for better care of the crops. The other benefit of enclosure is they can do something called up and down husbandry way better. And that is as simple as is that, hey, let's have all these little sheep run around and on one field for a while, and then they're going to fertilize that field in the next year. Well, we're going to then plant our crops there. It's called up and down husbandry, and it's just a really effective way to get the best out of your crops. So what this whole process of enclosure means is that, well, things maybe are going better for the farmers, something like that. Well, the first thing they do is, because they own it all, is that the price of rent goes way up. And, well, then what that means is then people start to get forced off of their land. And then, then they realize people are forced off of their land, and then they come up with the genius ideas. Well, hey, now we've got this free land, well, why don't we enclose that as well? So it all comes back to this idea of that things are more expensive, people can't afford to live, and then people can't afford to provide for themselves. And that's all returns to this whole thing of why was there an increase in poverty? And it's 4 reasons, really. It's changes in farming, it's population growth, it's rising prices and enclosure, right? But what's crazy about it is all these different ideas connect. And, if you think about it right now, take a think, how do they connect, right? That's what you call critical thinking. That's when you really start to use your brain. That's when really things start to tick over. You can regurgitate everything I just said all day long. It's not going to get you anywhere. But, you take these ideas and you go, hold on, what's actually taking place here? That's where you start to really solve the Rubik's Cube inside your mind.